Koichi and Mike, and Mike and Rick Mastracchio, all of them have seen a vehicle be docked to the space station, and they know some of the stuff we have to do. I talked about driving those bolts. Well, there's a controller for each set of 4 bolts, so we have to unhook, 40 cables, and I mean, there's just really a lot of little stuff to do before you're ready to go in there and open the hatch, and also before you're ready to then take experiments out. You want to make sure you're really ready to unplug the experiments from where they are on the Cygnus to then go plug them in the space station. They might wait until the next day for the experiments.
Because those, I didn't know this until the other day. We actually shot a video yesterday that we're going to air during our installation coverage where we give a tour of actually the common berthing mechanism and the bolts and the latches.
Your go for maneuver to the expected position will take care of step 6 later.
But you were talking about these controllers that are actually they're actually in the hatchway. They take up a lot of room. They've got to unhook all that and get that out of the way before they can actually open the hatch, because I didn't know that they were kind of sticking out there sort of in the way of the actual doorway itself.
Right, so there's sort of like 4 things, sticking
big.
up from, left to right, front and top and bottom. They are big, but that's actually one of the misconceptions that it's kind of one of the jobs of the astronauts when we're trying to explain to the control team what it's really like up there.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, boy, you can't possibly fit more than 1 person in that space, and so it's going to take them this long to undo all those things. When actually, in zero-G, it's actually easy to fit at least 2 people in that space. So 2 people can work at a time, and so the time is going to go quicker. So that's the kind of perspective that we try to help with after we get back.
Yeah.
Now, Koichi, we're looking at step.
A question, Houston, is that step 1 of procedure 1.210?
That's step 5 and 1.110, and then we'll pick up step 6 later for you.
Okay, copy that. Step 5 of procedure 1.110. We'll put that in work.
Thanks, Koichi.
So they're just going to do a maneuver. They're actually going to move the Cygnus with a robotic arm to what we call the expected capture position. They're probably within a few inches of it, but we like to start from an exactly unknown place when we start the berthing sequence.
As the crew gets ready for this installation coming up here in the next hour or so, the installation due to take place at 6:40. Of course, that could happen a little bit earlier than expected. We are going to take a break here on NASA television for now and conclude our coverage of this morning's capture. Just to recap, the capture did occur at 5:08 a.m. Central Time. The 2 vehicles were 266 miles above the Indian Ocean, just to the northeast of Madagascar. They're still busy right now, kind of working through the processes to get ready for this installation. But Katie, I appreciate your time this morning. Let's talk about what's ahead. They've got to do this installation. We're going to go off the air, but they're still going to be pretty busy, kind of working through a lot of checklists and getting ready to rotate this thing around and actually install on the bottom side of Harmony, as you talked about. The hardest part is probably a little bit over with, but they still got quite a bit of work to do to get this thing actually installed.
I'd say they have a whole bunch of work to do today with the ground. It's a very choreographed operation, and at the same time, the speed at which something can go wrong and you have to react, it's that's going to be different in that, during capture, this is when if you knock the Cygnus, it's going to go sailing off, or, it's just a more critical time when you're actually capturing the free flyer. I would say it's one of the most critical things besides or in addition to a spacewalk that we do on the space station. But then the rest of this, it's not that it's mundane, but at the same time, it's slow, careful work that we've all done together before, and the degree of the unexpected is just smaller.
Well, appreciate your time, Katie. It's been good talking to you. Of course, you're one of the experts on this, so it's always good to get your perspective on what the crew's doing and help us kind of understand what's going on.
Well, this resupply operation, it is the life of the space station. It's one thing to get the crew up there, but we need to be resupplying the experiments as well, and that's what's really exciting about this mission, is seeing all that new hardware on board, all the new supplies for the experiments we already have on board, and, of course, a few surprises for the crew, I'm sure.
Yeah. And a ton of science. There's a lot of experiments on this flight, which of course are going to be anxious to get out and get underway.
Well, being down here on the ground, being part of it is the next best thing to be in there. It's special stuff that we all do.
Yeah, it is.
And it's nice to be a part of it. And I've been really excited about the results that we've been seeing from these space station experiments. And as a scientist, the fact that these are things that we can't do here on the Earth, we're doing them up in space, and the science and the benefits come right back down here to Earth. I'm very confident of that, and very proud of it as well.
So we will be back as we look at this orbital team there in Dulles, Virginia at about 6 a.m. Now, we want to caution you that sometimes these crews get a little bit ahead of the timeline. If that tends to be the case, which it could be, we're going to monitor it here in Mission Control, and we will come back on with live coverage as soon as we can, even earlier than expected if we have to, if they start getting ahead of the timeline. But as it stands right now, we'll be back at 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Eastern, for the live coverage of the installation of Cygnus to the ISS at about 6:40. But again, if they start moving ahead on the timeline and get ahead of the schedule, we will come back on the air immediately. So we will see you back here in a few minutes here on NASA Television. This is Mission Control Houston.